What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you an update for Swordsoul for the brand new year of 2024. Now admittedly, not much has actually changed for the Swordsoul deck. It's just a nice one to constantly keep reminding people of that it's a nice, cheap and easy deck to play, and it can be a very nice introductory deck for anyone that is interested in synchros for a brand new or returning player, while also trying to keep the budget on the low and low. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more upcoming content. If you are interested in tokens, I get asked this pretty much every time in a Swordsoul build. I got them from Raider Trader 4 and I'll put the link into his Instagram below, but I believe in America you can also get them off of Etsy, so you never know. So starting off with the Swordsoul lineup, this is 99% staple. I think there's probably a couple of profiles that will play these a little bit differently, but most times than not, you are playing them at standard. So triple Swordsoul Moyi, reveal a Swordsoul or a worm in the hand to spawn out a token, synchro summon, and then when it is used for synchro summoning, you get to draw a card. Long one, again, discard a Swordsoul or discard a worm, spawn it itself down and spawn a token, synchro summon with it, burn your opponent for 1200. Tire, exactly the same, reveal a worm or a Swordsoul, banish a worm or a Swordsoul from the graveyard, spawn a token, and then when it's used as synchro material, you get to send a card from the deck to the graveyard, or specifically, a worm. Then of course the honorary Swordsoul monster in the form of Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous. It basically just gives you more access to cards like Taya and Moyi. I can't imagine that you'd ever really want to summon out Long One unless you desperately need that level, but more times than not you're going to be going down for Moyi and sometimes for Taya. For the other Swordsoul cards, of course, triple Emergence. Like, this card's basically a rota for Swordsouls. Just search yourself out any Swordsoul monster from the deck to the hand, but if you do control a synchro monster, you get to add any worm monster instead. And then if it's banished, you can level manipulate one of your Swordsoul monsters by increasing or decreasing its level by 1 until the end of the turn. Very, very nice. I do play the one summit. You don't have to. You can cut this out if you wanted to main deck something like a Nibiru. But keep in mind your Nibiru does clash with your Tenyis, so you do need to be a little bit careful. But there are times when, off of back of Tire, Foolish Burying, and Moyi, activate Summit, and you can just kind of push your combo that little bit further sometimes. So I do like it. And then we've got 2 Blackout. You can play 1, you can play 2, it's entirely up to you. There are just really cool times, and I've been on the receiving end of this, especially with the Effect Veiler that I'll speak about a little bit later on, where you can banish Blackout from the deck off of the back of Yugioh, and a lot of people forget that that's what Yugioh can do, and then spawn a token. So there's times when you're like constantly stopping stuff, if they've opened up Summit or anything like that, or they've already opened up Blackout. There's just loads of different ways where, especially if you can't add as well, that you can actually banish the Blackout and still get advantage off the back of it. So keep that in mind. Then for the Tenyis, I like to play a smaller Tenyi package because I do like to play Vessel as well. There's a Vessel and Circle in this deck, but again, it comes down to personal preference. But more times than not, if you're playing a Tenyi build, you're usually going to be playing triple Ashuna, and then you're either going to be playing triple Vishuddha or you're going to be playing double Vishuddha and double Adhara like I do. Followed up by the one Shafana. It really is entirely up to you. Sometimes playing 3 and 3 is absolutely great. Sometimes playing 2 and 2 is great. There's just different days, different changes, and additional personal preferences. And then for the draw card, we've got 2 Pot Desires. Yes, it has come back to 3. I honestly don't think it desperately needs it. I did also consider Upstart Goblin, but I wouldn't play Upstart Goblin without Desires. So if I was to put Upstart in here, you'd play Upstart plus Desires. But the way that I kind of looked at it is, at the end of the day, like, I'd rather activate Desires and get Drolled, because at least I'll get a -9, draw 2 new cards, rather than Upstart Drolled, and the Upstart may not lead me to anything, yet give my opponent life points. You can still play the Upstart, and that's one benefit this deck will have, is more times than not, playing the Upstart isn't the end of the world, because there will be times when you're going into game 3, you'll activate Upstart, you'll give them the 1000 life points, but because you're playing a card like Long One, you still have the ability to reduce them below 8000, so you'll still get the win at the end of it anyway. 2 is more than enough. There has been times where I play 3 and you're like Desires into Desires and you're like, oh bro, this sucks. So 2's worked completely fine prior to this. It still works completely fine now. You still want to be burning through your deck to get to everything you need to, and then basically Desires technically acts as a bit of a win more card, but it's also there as a safety net in case you don't open up what you need to. Desires can give you the best way of digging through everything you need. I then play 2 Heavenly Dragon Cycle and 2 Vessel. Again, this is down to personal preference. Some people will play 2 and 1s and 2 and 1s the other way around, 3 and 1s. Some people might not even play Heavenly Cycle at all. They might not play Vessel at all. I just quite like this. Obviously, Vessel is a nice foolish barrel, as well as also being a search as well, which again, in this argument with Draw and Lockbird running around, you could want to play it at 1. Again, if you take this out and you were to take out one of the other cards that I mentioned, that's where your Vishuddha and Ahara come into play. It's also where you can utilise the ability of playing Nib, but like I said, Nib does clash with your Tenyis. Another engine, if you don't want to play the Tenyi engine at all, that I have used before, is Super Heavy Samurai. And again, the Super Heavy Samurai still keeps it within a nice little bit of a tidy budget. You will add a little bit more to the extra deck because you'll be playing the Axel Synchro Dragon. But the idea is that that can lead you to a Baron before you then invest into your plays. The only issue with something like that is you can't play a card like Upstart Goblin. You can't really play Desires because you don't want to be putting a spell in the graveyard, because as soon as you do that, your Swordsoul Super Heavy Samurai engine is kind of then offline. So you need to do all of your Super Heavy Samurai stuff first, and when you're taking out the 10 years, you've got less worms. So your hand reliance is a little bit more on opening up multiple Swordsouls rather than open up a Swordsoul with a 10 year or a 10 year with a Swordsoul, vice versa. For the hand traps, the best thing about this deck is it has a lot of space for hand traps. I'm going to show you a range of hand traps at 2s rather than dedicated ones at 3, because then you can adapt them for the local environment. So obviously we've got Ash Blossom, we've got Effect Veiler. Now Effect Veiler actually counts as a combo piece in this deck, which is absolutely insane. There has been a couple of times, again, shout out to Rob on this one, where I've been on the receiving end of this, where you just stop absolutely everything, but they still maintain a normal summon, or you've stopped absolutely everything and they top deck an Effect Veiler and they go normal summon Effect Veiler and synchro off. Now obviously Effect Veiler on its own is not going to do anything, but there are times when they're like, right, okay, cool, normal summon Effect Veiler, synchro off, and then could build from there. You could arguably put World Chalice Justica in here for that exact example, but then you're using up an extra deck spot for a very niche moment. You still want to have the way of being able to use Effect Veiler, and the idea is Vishuddha plus Effect Veiler equals Yugioh. Very, very nice. So you do have loads of other plays to make as well. 2 Infinite Impermanence is like the strongest hand trap in the fact that it just can't be stopped with normal cards like Call by the Grave. So Call by the Grave is in here to kind of deal with Ashes and Drolls against you. But again, I'm still not the biggest fan of Call by, because it is like I have to have it in my hand when they have that hand trap to activate against me. And if they have Imperm, it does nothing. But it is like pretty powerful just to deal with absolutely everything. So, and then the final 2 cards is 2 Forbidden Droplet, just because you've got that ability to board break. There are times when you might have a monster on the board and then you want to get rid of it. Example, Nibiru. So again, if you're like, you know what, I want to kind of make this a little bit more aggressive, I actually want to play 3 Droplet and I want to play 3 Nibiru, and then I can cut out more cards within the deck and play it that way, then you can do. I'm trying to show you you've got flexibility. You want to try and include a range of these in your deck so you've got the benefit of everything. Imperm, like I said, is just the out-and-out hand trap that is very difficult to stop, and it gives you that ability of being able to negate a card if you are going second. So that's probably like the first slot in the deck. After that, it then comes down to when you're dropping an Ash Blossom on your opponent, is it ending their turn? If it's not really being as effective as other cards, then you can start looking at main deck and Droll if your local environment is completely losing to a Droll main deck. The exact same can then be said about Nibiru. Effect Veiler is probably the second card you put on the list, but like I said, it comes up in niche scenarios where it's like, right, okay, cool, drop an Effect Veiler on my opponent, I'm able to keep comboing off, or use it with a Vishuddha. So again, it comes down to personal preference, personal experience, but you just have the flexibility to kind of play this around as you see fit. And like I said, because of the rarity collection, this deck is nowhere near expensive. And then moving on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, for our Synchro level 10s, of course, we've got the long one. Absolutely insane boss monster for this. What it is missing, like, its aggression is absolutely insane. Like, the banishing on the board and burning is insane. But you kind of want it to be a worm version of Baron. But it's not. Obviously, Baron de Fleur, nice and easy now that it's been reprinted in the Rarity Collection. Then, of course, you've got your Chen Ying. This just benefits massively off of Desires. Like, Desires, and then the ability to make Chen Ying basically makes Chen Ying like a 4K boss monster. It's insane. And then it also reduces your opponent's monsters. So, Desires plus Chen Ying, very, very good boss monster. Because I do feel that Castor is definitely going to be coming back into the format, I went with the Ice Jade. I really, really like this card in this deck. So it requires a water tuner, which obviously all your tokens are when you spawn them, and then a non-tuner. So it's quick effect. You can activate this effect. Face-up monsters you control cannot be destroyed or banished. There you go, no Fenrir, by your opponent's card effects this turn. Also helps you against stuff like Lightning Storm. Then if you activate this effect in response to your opponent's card or effect, Fenrir, and your opponent has a card or cards with the name on the field and or in the graveyard, you can banish those cards. If a card or cards is banished by your opponent's card effect while this card is in the graveyard except during the damage step, you get to special summon this card. So it keeps looping itself back around. So that's why it's just a really kind of cool out to Kashtira lineup. And like I said, I do highly expect that Kashtiras will be coming back at least for the first few weeks of this format. But I do feel that they're definitely like a very strong anti-meta deck and can really cause a lot of issues. We then got Chaofeng, so another way to wormlock yourself yet protect yourself from the Biru. 2 Yugioh, pretty standard on that one. 1 Berserker Atenyi, very aggressive. 2 Baxia, 1 Yazi, all straightforward on that one. And then one card I like to play, like you can adapt this, change this, do whatever you want with it. It can be your third monk, basically. But I quite like having a Mega in the deck. And the reason I quite like this is there's a lot of times where you can actually recycle your... Obviously, your Adhara is going to recycle all your Tenyis anyway, and sometimes your Swordsoul. But then there are times where a Mega can help you recycle your cards as well. And that can be very, very useful. And rip one from your opponent's hand. You don't have to play it this way. It is entirely up to you. Like I said, it's a flex spot. I just wanted to show you something a little bit different than not a lot of people are playing. But this can very easily become your third monk. Speaking of third monk, yes, I have dropped it down to 2. There are times when I'll drop it to 2, I'll put it to 3, and I constantly keep bouncing back and forth depending on how I'm feeling with the deck, what type of changes I want to make, if I feel that I can consistently make a card like Omega and cause issues, or if I feel that I'm going to get more use out of the Ice Jade. That pretty much takes up the third monk slot, and I feel that Monk or maybe even Baxia are probably the next closest to be sacrificed. But there has been times when I've had 1 Baxia and I'm like, damn, I really want the second, or I go through the second very easily and helps you break boards. And the last one, of course, is the 1 Shaman. Again, quite like Monk, it's one of them ones where the more and more you play, you're like, I don't really need Shaman. And there'll be a time when you're like, oh, damn, I really need Shaman and I haven't got it here. So it's one of the ones where you want to have it and not need it, then need it and not have it throughout the course of playing Swordsoul. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much it. So the whole main deck and extra deck, very, very cheap, very, very easy to pick up, which is why, of course, it is a nice budget deck, and it's a very nice beginner's deck. Now, obviously, it's not as great as all coming in one structure deck, because that would just be too easy. But being able to find the pieces should be relatively easy. Ecclesia and Moyi, probably more so Moyi, are the most expensive cards, and I believe that was like £8 on eBay the last time I checked. So, yeah. Definitely, no matter whether you're playing Swordsoul or not, if you're watching this build looking for a budget build, make sure you go out and you're buying the staples first from the Rarity Collection set. Not obviously in the rarity that I'm showing you, but the idea is that you need to make sure that every duelist has a playset of Ash, a playset of Impermanence, Drolls, Droplets, Dark Rulers, you name it. They're staples that every player should have. And I believe they're at such a low price right now that it would be mad. Whether you are planning to like dip out of the game and then come back or anything else like that, they're staple cards. They get played in 99% of the decks, and no matter what deck you're playing them. So it's always safe to have a copy for the future, rather than coming back and the price go up in like it goes up in price and you're like, oh damn, I can't afford to pay £10 a copy or anything like that. Well, now you can pick them up for like £3-4 a copy, maybe a little bit less, especially if you're going to be buying the structure deck and covering multiple bases, and then you're in a very nice situation. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.